Thank you for joining us for the 2022 Hawaii Early College Convening. We would like to remind everyone that today's presentation is being recorded and will be posted on the event website. Please keep all cameras off and all microphones muted throughout the session if you would not like to be recorded. Artificial intelligence will be providing live captioning for accessibility purposes. Captions may not accurately reflect what is being said. Captions will be corrected for session recordings. Recordings and resources will be posted to the site between 3 to 4 weeks after today's presentation. If you have any questions for today's presenters, please add them to the chat box throughout the session, and we will be answering as our presenter goes through the session. We are extremely and super excited to have Karina Smith joining us today. Karina Smith is the Assistant Director for Concurrent Enrollment. She has her PhD in International Education from North Central University, MS in Communication from Portland State University, and her BA in Cultural Anthropology from the University of Alaska Anchorage. She has over 15 years of experience in higher education, working in student housing, student affairs, and academic advising. She oversees the student support and advising process for the Department of Concurrent Enrollment. So without further ado, I bring to you Karina Smith.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be able to be here with you all. I wish I was there in Hawaii rather than up here in Boise, Idaho. It is a little bit chilly today, although it's a beautiful sunny 50 degrees. So I am hoping that we can kind of enjoy that time as we're kind of moving through things. I'm here today to talk a little bit about our session on thinking about advising for concurrent enrollment. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And so you have that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look today and think about student development when we're building supportive dual credit programs and advising structures. And when I refer to dual credit, I'm also referring to concurrent enrollment, early college, really understanding what those definitions are across the board. And I'll explain a little bit about what dual credit looks like here at Boise State and within the state of Idaho so that you have an idea what that definition is as we're going through it, because I do know that depending on what state you're in, it does look very different across the board. And so making sure that you have that information as we're kind of going through things. So let's talk a little bit about, in the state of Idaho, dual credit and concurrent enrollment and early college all are exactly the same thing, and all of our institutions use that same language. And so as we're kind of thinking about those things, I want to give you an idea of what institutions offer credit. We have a total of 4 community colleges offering dual credit, and that is all the community colleges in the state of Idaho. We have 4 public four-year institutions offering dual credit, and that is all of our 4-year public institutions in the state of Idaho, and then 2 private institutions offering dual credit. And there's only one higher ed institution in the state of Idaho that is not offering dual concurrent early college credit. For the state of Idaho, we had a total number of unduplicated headcount of 29,672 for the year 2019-2020 academic year, and a total of 233,000 credits that were offered. Boise State itself is the 3rd largest provider in the state, with just under 7,000 students supported in 2019-2020 and a total of almost 32,000 credits earned. When we think about dual and concurrent enrollment, It is set up so that it happens directly in the high school. And that is where the majority of the classes and the dual credit happens. So teachers are certified at the high school to be able to teach those courses. There are students in there that are not earning college credit, as well as students that are earning college level credit at the same time. And so you really have that ability to leverage the talent that is already in our classroom space. And so really thinking about that as you're kind of looking at it. We do have some students who come to our institutions, whether it be Boise State, the College of Western Idaho, College of Southern Idaho, Idaho State University, and come to our campuses to take college level courses. But the majority of the credits happen directly at the high school by teachers who are certified by the institutions to teach for those courses. Additionally, each of the teachers get to make the decision as to what higher ed institution they want to be a part of. So it is not determined by the state. It is determined or by the district. It is determined by the teachers. So we oftentimes work with students who are taking college level credit from a number of our sister institutions across the state. And so we may have as many as five or six different institutions offering dual credit in one high school. And so those students may have that many college credits as they're looking through things and trying to navigate what that looks like. It can get incredibly complicated as we look through it, but it does mean that we want to make sure that we're supporting our students as much as possible, and they're not just taking classes just to take classes. An example is I recently worked with one of our students who sent me a list of classes that she was taking this year in her senior year. And one of the classes, she's taking it from Idaho State University, but she took the same course from a different institution last year. It just has a different name. And so making sure that our students understand that those courses, they may be the same course, but they may have different pre-codes that are tied to it, and so working with the students on that end. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of where we're at. I want to go next into discussing our state legislation that's tied to it, because it does make the state of Idaho a little bit unique in that the state of Idaho provides $4,125 to every student from 7th grade all the way until they graduate high school. And so those students can use that funding for a variety of different things, from advanced placement tests, career and technical education tests. They're a focus on their concurrent dual early college credits. They can also pay to retake ACT or SAT scores tests as well. The state of Idaho does pay every student's SAT classes or tests as it is. But if they want to retake it, it will pay for that. Additionally, the state of Idaho requires that all dual concurrent enrollment credits sit at $75 a credit. So essentially, a student who just takes dual or concurrent enrollment or early college credits can achieve 55 college credits and not pay anything out of pocket. And so when we hit that certain level, it becomes incredibly important to make sure that those students are supported. Within the state legislation, the state of Idaho does require that all students receive advising at 15 credits. Now, when this legislation went into effect in 2014, it still does, it just says all students at 15 credits receive advising, with no explanation or decision or identification of what that actually looks like. It means that we as advising groups, in conjunction with our high school, college, and career counselors, with superintendents, college presidents, advising offices, have have to figure out a way to make sure that we understand how best and who is going to be providing that opportunity and that advising structure. Um, right now, I want to give you kind of a little bit of what Idaho looks geographically. So Idaho is very large. It is not by far in the top 5 states as far as being the largest. However, it is very spread out. The northern part borders the entire border of western or eastern Washington, and the southern part of Idaho borders the entire part of Oregon. And the entire border of eastern Montana is on ours as well. The jagged line is the continental divide, and then we do border with Wyoming, Utah, and Nevada as well. So we are very much surrounded. We go all the way to Canada as well. We have a little bit of tip at the top there of Canada. You'll notice that the big on the picture on the left, where it has the Bitterroot Range, the Blue Mountains, there is a substantial amount of area that is really uninhabited. We have a large number of and very large mountains, rivers that separate our communities pretty substantially. The largest populations are in the southern part of the state. But even there is some substantial distance in between communities. We are the fourth most rural community or state in the nation. And so that does create some substantial challenges. The mountains also create substantial challenges in regards to internet and broadband and making sure students have access. And so there is some things to kind of keep in mind when you're thinking about that. I show this because I do know that the state of Hawaii has similar challenges in that you have a number of island states. So while Idaho is separated by huge mountains, you all are separated by water, and that does sometimes make it more challenging to be able to interact with our students and to be able to be available for our students. And so I wanted to kind of discuss that, give you an idea, a little bit of what that all looks like, just so that you have a nice piece as you're thinking about it. With that all being said, and with that advising funding that we talked about, 3 years ago, the college and university presidents at the public level requested that a task force be pulled together to examine dual and concurrent enrollment. The task force was divided into 2 different groups. One focused on making sure that, excuse me, sorry, addressing certain things such as transcripts. Because if you remember what I had said earlier, we have students that may have 5, 6 different college transcripts once they graduate high school. And so looking at how can we make that more seamless, not so cumbersome for our students. They also looked at helping to align transfer credits so that if a student transfers from the University of Idaho to Boise State, it is visually more accessible. So English 101 is the same at University of Idaho as it is at Boise State. So really thinking about that transfer piece and really requiring the institutions to help align their curriculum so that it makes it easier for students who are transferring, and in particular, dual and concurrent enrollment. The second task force, which I participated in over a 2-year period of time, was focused specifically and solely on advising. And it was really about that advising piece that came out of that state legislation in regards to the 15 credits. When the state legislation was set up, the first thing that they did, and what many set up to do was that they gave money back to the high school, college, and career counselors and said, or back to the schools and said, hey, here's money, hire college and career counselors and do advising for 15 or more, for students with 15 or more college credits. A lot of our schools, particularly in Ada County and Canyon County, which are our biggest population, have students of 1,500 to 2,000, and some even are at 2,500 because Boise has grown so much in the last few years, and they're over capacity. But there's only one college and career counselor, and that college and career counselor is there for everybody. And so, and they're advising students across the board for all the different institutions. And as you may know, it is really difficult to keep track of not only your own institution, and for those of you who work in the higher ed system, it's very difficult even in our own systems to keep track of the curriculum changes and the requirements and policy changes and this, that, and the other. But for our college and career counselors in our high schools, when they're trying to support and advise students who are looking to go to a wide variety of institutions, it was incredibly hard for them to be able to support, especially that many students. And so one of the things that the task force did was they made recommendations, and at that, those recommendations was that advising occur at the college or university for 15 or more credits. That ended up being that ends up being about 4,000 students, and it's rising on a daily or on a yearly basis. So we keep getting more and more, but it does help to provide some level of structure back into it. It also recommended the creation of an online advising module. And that online advising module is actually now in use. So students do have to complete that when they hit 15 or more credits. The last part of that online module allows them to identify what it helps walk them through a question. It's like I don't know, it's a staggered question piece. And so if a student comes in and is like, I don't know where to go to do my advising, what college or university, it'll ask them, are you working on your associate's degree? Where do you have the most credits? Where do you plan on going to college after you graduate high school? And it helps them focus down to what college or university they should be going and reaching out to. So these were recommendations that the task force put forth to the college and university presidents in regards to advising. Additionally, they recommended that there be a creation of a statewide advisory committee that work both in conjunction with concurrent dual enrollment administrators, advisors, and then also our college career counselors, our superintendents, all of those as they're working together to help provide a level of support as they're thinking about things. And so we are still in the process of working on that at a statewide level. But it is something that is moving forward. The college and university presidents have not moved forward in any of the recommendations. And in some, there is some substantial cost prohibitiveness that's tied to it. But it is a look at what is most important, especially because the state of Idaho, 57% of our college student or of our high school graduates graduate with at least one dual or concurrent enrollment credit. And the national average sits at 34. So we are well above the national average in regards to students who are taking dual and concurrent enrollment. So now that you have an idea in regards to advising, the work that the state is doing, and some of that, let's talk a little bit about the next piece, which is what is academic advising? And I think that this is really important to think about. And I think that as we discuss it, and if you have questions, please let me know. But there is actually a global community, and actually they just had their annual conference. It ended yesterday. It is called NECS. If you would like contact information or would like their website, just let me know. I can put it in the session materials or in the chat box. But NECS is a really great resource to understand what advising is. So if you've never been exposed to advising or only a little bit, this is a great opportunity to get in and start thinking about how best to support our students. So when I think about it, this is from Dearborn of 2002, and I really think that it is a solid definition. Academic advising is a collaborative relationship between a student and an academic advisor. The intent of this collaboration is to assist the student in the development of meaningful educational goals that are consistent with personal interests, values, and abilities. Although many individuals on campus, including academic advisors, may assist the student in making decisions and accomplishing the goals, the academic advisor is granted formal authority by an academic unit, so the college, the school, a department, to approve the student's academic program of study and to assist the student in making progress towards the appropriate degree. Additionally, NECS refers to academic advising as actually teaching. So it goes beyond our tradition, in a lot of cases, people's traditional thoughts about just scheduling or making sure that they're in the right classes. But it really is, as we said before, a collaborative relationship. And it does go into some of those pieces that are very developmental as we think about things and making sure that those students work towards meaningful educational goals. So that first paragraph for me is really the important one as you're thinking about it. It is having a conversation with a student, listening to each student individually to figure out what is best for them, what are their values, what are they wanting to do, what are their abilities as well, because sometimes there is some misalignment in regards to that in thought process. And so sometimes we have to have those difficult conversations where a student wants to be a doctor, but their grades are just not there and they're not going to get into med school. And so even just having those conversations and developing that relationship is really important as we think about things. There are several different advising models. This is not inclusive by any means, but one of the things that Boise State's advising does is that we do create and think about the whole student. So we think about a holistic student support system. I have listed 6 different advising models, and I encourage you to take a look at these. The first 2, which are divided out, are prescriptive advising and transactional. And these are really very much advising models that are, here's your schedule, this is what you need to do, go do it. And it's very much about telling the student what to do, not necessarily listening to the student about what they want to do or where they want to go. So it is very much about this, and this. And then when you get that done, come back and I'll give you your next list of things that you need to do. So those are the 2. There is definitely a call to have those 2 types of advising models integrated into what you may overarchingly do, because sometimes we do absolutely need to tell a student that they need to do this, and then they need to do this, and then they need to do this. But it is important to make sure that you're integrating the other pieces. And the other 4 are really those next steps and more of that relationship building. So developmental, appreciative, proactive, and intrusive. I don't like the word intrusive. I apologize for my voice. I've been flying and shifted from humid to dry back again. And so I'm struggling a little bit with that dry piece again. But I don't particularly like the word intrusive, but I do like the word proactive. So if you're wanting to do more research into any of these areas, if you don't find a lot on proactive, look up intrusive. You'll get the same type of information, similar type of information. They mean the same amount. And then there's also transformative. We at Boise State use a combination of the prescriptive, the transactional, developmental, appreciative and proactive and transformative, all together as we're kind of looking and working with the students. I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about how we think about advising. So one of the key things is that you'll find with NACADA is that there is a focus on students who are either adult learners or that first year straight out of high school or that sophomore year in college. There's not a lot in regards to working with students who are younger than 18. And it is a very unique population who are not developmentally in the same place as students who are, say, in their senior year of college, or even in that first year of college. There is a substantial amount of stuff developmentally that happens between the time a student graduates high school and the time that they actually move into college. And so we at Boise State have developed an advising model that takes that into consideration. And we utilize Erickson's stages of development. And this is a psychosocial developmental model as it looks at students and thinks about students and really delves into how you might support and engage students. But before we get in there, I just wanted to check to see if anybody has any questions at this point that I can take in regards to kind of the demographics of Boise, Boise State, how we're set up, or the state of Idaho, or even in regards to advising and some of those pieces there. I'll give you all a few minutes. I know it takes a little bit to enter in some chats. Okay, it looks like we're all good to go. So I will go ahead and continue on with Erickson's stages of development. We really focus on the school age and adolescence area, a little bit into young adulthood, but the majority is really going to be in that green and in the teal blue space with school age and industry when we're thinking about when we were thinking about developing our advising model. And so when we go into this, that school age is really about industry versus inferiority. So students at this age, and this is usually our students who are 8th, 9th, 10th grade. So really just starting high school, kind of moving into that area, is really about, am I good enough? Can I move forward? Am I college ready? Are these things that can be helpful as we're kind of talking about it? It is really important at this point to make sure that students feel that they are definitely competent and available to do it. So one of those major questions that they have versus in this is, how can I be good? So making sure that they are doing and if they do fail in something, making sure that they understand that failing is part of the process. That basic virtue is really competence, and that biggest event obviously is school. They're in it 8 hours a day, 7 hours a day for 5 days a week. Depending on what school district, we now have several school districts in Idaho who are only going 4 days a week, and they're going 9 hours during those 4 days to get that time. But it's really about that time that they're spending. So they're testing things. They're trying new things. They may be succeeding. They may be failing. And if they are not supported in that piece, so if they, like I said before, if they fail and they're just told, well, you're just not good enough, that shifts their really that identity piece into, I'm not good enough across the board. So really thinking about that as we kind of keep that in mind for this particular population and make sure that we're working with them in that capacity. So in a moment, I'll talk about how this underlines into what we've done for advising, but I just want to give you kind of that idea of this theory that ties with it. Their junior, senior year and going into college, they're really working on identity versus role conflict. So they're trying to figure out, who am I? The fidelity. They're figuring out their social relationships. They're going and exploring. They're experimenting with different roles. So this is really that junior, senior year. It does cross over a little bit into that freshman, sophomore year as well. But they may be trying different groups in school. They may be working with different people, trying different classes that they may be wanting to explore with. It is really about thinking about, who are they, and when they come up against something that is different than who they think that they are, it can be a little bit of a struggle for them. And so helping students through that particular piece is really important when we think about it. So let's talk a little bit about how this underlines with Boise State's advising model. So Boise State has both a combination of general advising and then formalized advising. Our general advising, and I'll just go over this really quickly and then I'll move more into our formalized advising, because that's where a lot of the Erickson's model comes out. It really is about what we do. But as I mentioned earlier, we have about 6,800 students who take college credits from us while still in high school. Our formalized advising programs, so the 15 to start, sophomore start, and our associate's degree programs, only serve about 450 students. It is growing right now, but it does only serve 450 students currently. So when we think about our general advising, this is where the majority of our students are. And we currently only have one full-time advisor, a half-time advisor, and a quarter-time advisor. I am a half-time advisor at that assistant director level. I oversee our advising program. And then we have a quarter-time advisor who helps support us, but does a variety of other functions within our dual and concurrent enrollment office as well. When we think about general advising for the additional 6,500 students that are not part of our formalized program, it's really important for us to underline what materials and support pieces that we have. Any student at any point in time is available to reach out to us and ask us for general questions, for advice, connection to resources. They may come to us and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to the University of Idaho, but I have this number of credits from Boise State. How will they transfer? Will they transfer? I'm thinking about Boise State, but I don't know if it's a good fit. They'll can also do major exploration and career exploration with us, but they do have to reach out to us. So that is the onus on them to reach out to us to get that information. Keep in mind that 6,800 students may also be taking classes from any number of other institutions in the state of Idaho as well. So they may be getting support from other institutions, or they may not. Additionally, they may also be getting support and help from our college and career advisors as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that relationship here in a minute, because it's a really important one, and it's really focused right now on that formalized advising. We are doing a lot right now to really start branching out in our general advising to help support our college and career counselors, as well as to support our students. And we're working on doing that general advising support right now through development of our website. So it's easier access for students. They can find key resources that link directly back to our main website, so they get that experience back and forth. We do also have a YouTube channel that is available, and we have short little 1 to 5 minute, and 5 minute is by far at the max time frame that we do, but short little tidbits on transferability, on what is a degree plan. Do you have to get an associate's degree to get a bachelor's degree? So we are working on developing that YouTube channel, and every year we add about 5 or 6 new YouTubes to that channel in regards to um, advising structures, advising content, and trying to engage and incorporate those individuals. That YouTube channel is not only just for the students, but it is also a resource for our college and career counselors. It is also a resource for our administrators that are back at the high schools. As well as for our teachers, we do have a separate space for our teachers so that they have that access as well. We have also developed a number of worksheets that help those students out as well in regards to, we have one that will link out to every single one of the universities in the state of Idaho that will take them directly to the web page where they need to get their transcripts. So if they're coming to Boise State, we just give them that one sheet and they can hit all of those places. It links directly to that website and they can get those transcripts nice, easy piece. If they are graduating with their associate's degree, we have worksheets to help walk them through the steps that they need to do as they're working through that. We have flyers, single page support resources, and then we also have newsletters that are tied with that general advising. Again, this is an area where we are delving into much larger. We recently just hired a graduate assistant for our office. She is getting her master's degree in counseling education, and she has been hired to work on creating resources and support materials directly for our middle school and for our high school counselors to help support the students that are in the classroom. So we are doing this so that they have more resources, and we're trying to make it general, so not university specific, Boise State specific as much as possible, because we know that our students are not just coming to Boise State. We want to make sure that we are providing general information across the board to help our college and career counselors that are both in the high school and the middle school. We identified the middle schools as a key place because as we've started working with our high school students, we've discovered that oftentimes they know nothing about the fact that they can take dual and concurrent enrollment classes while in high school. And oftentimes they may have a path that they want to do, such as engineering or healthcare or something along those lines. And they don't find out about it until there's a pathway in their high school, but they had to start it out as a freshman, but they don't find out about it until a sophomore. And so then they're not able to take those college courses until much later. So we're hoping by doing what we're doing that we can help educate our middle school counselors when they start working with the 8th graders as they're transitioning to high school to know more about the opportunities that are in high school for those students to take. So let's take a moment to talk about our formalized advising. In 2014, 2015, our provost at Boise State came to our office and said, I'd really like to start a sophomore start option. Sophomore start is an opportunity for students to get their first 30 college level credits prior to them graduating high school. So they would come into college, come into Boise State at that sophomore level. So our department began working on that, getting it going, starting it up. In the intermediate years, we have also added the associate's degree and 15 to start. Our associate degree, all three are tied directly to the high schools. So particularly as you think about it, we have MOUs with each of the high schools that participate with it. Our 15 to start option is that first 15 college credits prior to them graduating high school. Students can do more than 15 or they can just hit that 15. The majority of our students, and we just started that, our first cohort is this year, but we work with them on a degree plan. And right now in the numbers for that degree plan, most students are sitting at about 20 college credits. So they are getting above that first 15. I am currently out recruiting in our schools again. We have 10 10 high schools that are participating in the 15 to start, and they are in our rural and remote regions of Idaho. So what we do, um, I'll answer that real quick, Katrina here in a minute. What we do is we help to support those students as they're trying to figure out. So Katrina asked, for those students that are part of 15 to start, do they declare a major or career pathway before they join? So they do not have to. They can declare that they are undecided with a trajectory towards the sciences, or they may want to do this. What we do when we don't have a student who knows what they want to do is we work with them. We've partnered with our Career Center on campus to offer a program called Pathways U that has 4 different assessments. We have those students take that assessment and begin working on major and career exploration, and we work with those students through that major and career exploration. We don't want any student to feel like they have to make a decision about which direction they want. And if they don't, when we do our degree planning, with them, we focus on general education courses that are going to be more applicable across the board. So if they're totally not for sure about things, we're going to probably figure out that we're going to do their English. We may do math with a focus on college algebra. And a movement up to calculus, because that will work for even our arts. And so we will really focus on making sure that the doors are open for them to make decisions into any direction that they want to go. As we know, even in college, 75% of students change their major at least once they've gotten into college. And we're working with a population, if we go back to that identity versus role conflict, they're really experimenting and trying out different things. And so students may change their mind, they may not know, they may have, I'm interested in criminal justice, forensic science, being a doctor. They may have 10 or 15 different things listed. So they're not undecided, but they aren't decided either. And so we really leave it to them and meet the students where they're at and help to support them to get to a place where they can make a better decision. So we're really there to kind of be major and career exploration advisors, really there to be health, direction, pathway, engineering pathway, business pathway advisors as well. So we kind of do a little bit of all of it. Our other 2, the sophomore start and the associate's degree, the associate's degree is only currently in 5 schools. We do have memorandum of understandings with those schools. If you remember from before, our students take the classes back at the high schools. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that the high schools have a commitment to ensuring that there are classes available and that there is the specific courses. So we're really focusing on those general ed requirements and that sophomore to start. When we think about our formalized advising, we really want to make sure that our students are having access across the board. And so that is why this last year we went ahead and did the 15 to start. This gives you a little bit of an idea. We redesigned all of our outreach and support materials this last year to help kind of get our students together and really think about what they're doing. But our sophomore start and our associate degree options were really very much centered in the Treasure Valley, which is where our very urban districts are, where students have a lot of support in regards to teachers who have credentials. And in our rural and remote, our there's not as much access to dual and concurrent enrollment. So we started the 15 to start so that students would still have that. It does operate differently in that if a student cannot get a class at the high school, they cannot get it through IDLA. And IDLA is our Idaho Digital Learning Alliance. It's an online repository of K through 12 classes, including dual and concurrent enrollment classes. They're all taught online. But if they cannot get classes either at their high school or through IDLA, Boise State will drop our standard tuition to the $75 a credit, and the student can take that class through Boise State's online degree pathways program and get that class at the $75 a credit, much the same as if they were to do it at their high school or through IDLA. And so it helps to even that field so that they have the same level of access and support across the board. Any of these programs, the associate degree, the sophomore start, or the 15 to start, allow students to, they're not just set on doing classes at that particular place. They really are allowed to move forward. I do have 2 students right now who are in the 15 to start option who are actually working on their associate degree. And I have one who's in the 15 to start who's working on the sophomore start option. If a student is in that wants to do the sophomore start or is in a school that is a sophomore start, we automatically put them in the associate degree. It helps make it a little bit easier if they want to do the associate degree so that we keep track of them as we're kind of doing that. That kind of gives you a little bit of an idea, but I think it's really important that we make sure that if we're offering something to students in more of our urban areas where it's easier to access our students as well as our students to access us, that we need to take the time to be able to access those who are in our rural and remote. And in fact, we go out in our 15 to start to those particular schools and do advising at those schools. Zoom has been phenomenal in that we can now do Zoom advising appointments, but we do go out. In fact, this morning I had a 20-minute presentation at Payette High School, which is an hour away from here. And so I was able to do that presentation, work with our sophomore students as we're recruiting, and then be able to come home and be able to give this presentation as well. And so it's really important for us, for those students to see us as well as we're kind of thinking about things. So I want to talk a little bit for our advising, the timeline for our formalized advising, because this goes back to Erickson's model of the psychosocial and how we work with the students. So our first part is to outreach to high school students. And that outreach really includes the parents, the college and career counselors, the administrators, everybody who has agreed to be part of that formalized advising aspect. We reach out to students typically in their 9th and 10th grade. We do have some students who reach out to us in their junior year or senior year, but usually that is too late. When we're presenting information to those students about our programs, whether it be the associate degree, the sophomore start, or the 15 to start, thinking in regards to that Erickson's model, we really frame it as this is something that you can do. We frame it for the parents that this is something that their students need to do and that they need to be the ones to take the reins on because they are a college student. And if a student is interested in it, they need to be the ones to learn that particular piece. As we're working with these students, we do a lot of outreach back to the students. So students have to apply to be part of our program. The application takes about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we reach out to them, letting them know, as long as they've met our requirements, which is that they have a 3.0 GPA, they be attending an institution we're offering the program at, and that they be that freshman or sophomore, they automatically get invited for an initial advising appointment. We have no caps. We have no other means of working students out of the process other than we want to make sure that they are successful. Our 15 to start, I will say that our GPA is lower. It sits at a 2.7 instead of a 3.0 because there is only 15 college credits instead of that 30 or that 60 credits at that associate's degree. But we really think about and we frame everything as this is something that is definitely doable. College is doable. You are able to do it. Students do struggle, but you're able to make sure that it happens. So we do have that conversation with them. So we're hitting that area of industry versus inferiority as we're thinking about things. And then throughout their period of time during their sophomore, junior, senior year, we do that continual major and career exploration, which moves into that area of role conflict and identity, and really thinking about who are they, what do they want to do, what are they expecting out of their life, what are their goals. And so we delve into those. We do have a summer registration event because we do have, especially for those students who are doing the associate's degree, and even for our sophomore students, they do have to take our associate degree students do have to take at least 4 classes during the summertime, and they have to take them directly through Boise State. They do get it at that $75 credit rate. But we do a summer registration event, and the registration looks very different than what they've been doing in high school. And the classes look very different than what they've been doing in high school. So during that summer registration event, we talk about those differences, different deadlines, different ways to work through things. And then we also, their senior year, really focus on graduation advising and then that support with transition. And so we pull all of those pieces in regards to Erickson's model into how we have our conversations with the students and the training that I do with my advisors as we're thinking about things. So before we go into key takeaways and things to consider, I just wanted to check in to see if anybody has any questions. It looks like Katrina, for students interested in any of these programs, how are they placed into their classes? Do they take placement exams? Do you have exceptions for those students who don't place into your classes, i.e. college level English? So we have a strong partnership with our college and career counselors. And so one of the things that we do make sure of as we're thinking about our student population is that we want to make sure that they're at that level. If a student, say for instance, their English level is not high enough, most of the time that's not the case. It's usually math that is the difficult piece. But let's say they are not high enough to place into that math or English requirement that they need for the class. We will talk to them, especially if they're at that associate degree level, about switching over to the sophomore start. So any of our students in the associate degree can switch into the sophomore start. There's no penalties, no issues that come with it. In fact, in most cases, we spend most of our time talking to students about the fact that sophomore start is actually better than the associate's degree. We do not encourage the associate's degree. While we still offer it, we don't encourage it, especially for specific majors, especially those majors that have sequences that are tied to it, say nursing, pre-med, engineering, where there is specific sequencing that has to happen. Students can still participate. If they do not complete our program, when we have that graduation conversation with them, we frame it as you did not fail, but look at what you were able to accomplish. So even though you didn't achieve the sophomore start, or even though you didn't achieve the associate's degree, you were able to get 25 college credits that had you not participated, you would not have had. And these 25 credits go towards this, and this. You may have gotten 55 credits. You're really close. You take one more semester once you get into college, and you can get that associate's degree. So we frame it in such a way that it's not an issue. As far as placement is concerned, our high school counselors make that determination, and our college and career counselors make that determination. And when we do our initial advising session with the students and the parents, we encourage the parents to be there for that initial advising appointment, and where we create their degree plan. We make sure that they understand that this is not set in stone, and it depends on how well they do and whether or not they are placed into the courses that they have. And if they are not, they need to let us know so that we can adjust or look at things. In most cases, very rarely do we have students that don't make it, or we have some sort of issues where we have to address it. You asked, would students completing the associate's degree also be eligible for the high school diploma? Absolutely. In fact, in the state of Idaho, to receive your associate's degree or to get into college in the state of Idaho, you have to have a high school diploma to be able to get that associate's degree. So our students don't actually graduate with their associate's degree until the end of summer term. And so but they're able to participate in our graduation ceremony at Boise State. So they often walk at our graduation ceremony prior to them walking at their high school graduation. But they cannot technically graduate until we have a high school diploma showing completion of that at the time. I am currently working with a student who this is becoming a bit of an issue because she does not plan on graduating high school, but she's completed all of her requirements for the associate's degree. So we are investigating and trying to figure out what might be good solutions. The biggest one right now is really focusing on potentially a GED for her. I'm not entirely for sure why she does not want to graduate from high school, but we're addressing that as we're kind of looking through it. You said, are credentialed high school teachers providing dual credit instruction outside of their regular school day? No, it is tied directly to their actual school day. So they may be teaching dual credit English, and that is English 11. So the 11th grade English, it's just at a higher level. Students can then get dual credit. They can also get their high school requirement at the same time. So they are not teaching anything more outside. The only thing that they do have to do is they do have to keep 2 grade books, because the high schools often have different requirements for grading than the college or university. So the students may actually end up with 2 different grades. They may end up with a high school grade that may be higher than their college grade, because the college grade does not allow for repeats on assignments or late assignments or different things like that. So there is some key things that may shift on that. As we kind of finish up, I want to kind of outline here some key takeaways and things to consider. And I'll address your question here in a quick second. But as you're thinking about advising and setting up your different advising structures, think about how many do you need? So how many students are you wanting to serve? We have 450, and I mentioned that we have 1 full-time advisor, a half-time advisor, although I currently, even though I'm half-time advisor right now, I have a full-time advising load. And I have a quarter-time advisor. We are in the process of hiring another full-time advisor with that load to help out with a variety of additional things. The other piece is, where will they work? Will they work embedded in the high school? Because that is a model. Will they work at the college? Will the students come to the college? Will you do it virtually? How will you make that happen? The training of your staff members. What responsibilities beyond advising will they do? And then thinking about advising caseload. My preferred advising caseload for our students, because for our advisors, is about 150 to 175, because of the amount of very intentional in-person work that we're doing with that formalized advising. As we get more and more general advising, that may shift in regards to how that operates, but I do not want our advisors to have any more than about 175 advisees as we're thinking about things. As far as student support, thinking about who is your target population, who do you want to provide the advising for? Do you want to provide it for everybody? Do you want to provide some for this, some for this? Is there a credit differentiation like there is in Idaho? When you hit 15, you need advising. If you take 1 credit, you need advising. Does it look differently based on the number of credits? And then if you do customize based on credits earned or population, how do you ensure that you're getting equitable advising for the students that you may not be meeting with one-on-one? And then how do you reach students who are not easily accessible, such as in our rural and remote areas, and ensure that they have the same access to support and advising? So just some key takeaways as you're thinking about that. In regards to how they are paid, so the high school pays their primary salary, and then the college provides a stipend. They receive from the college $20 a credit, $20 per student per credit. So and it's standardized across the board between all the institutions. So they get an additional stipend. We do have one school district that does not allow the teachers to be paid directly. So the school district itself gets paid, and then it extends things out as you're kind of looking through things. And then I believe that is kind of the last piece is thinking about that high school to college transition support. So making sure that you have something in place for your students once they go on to college, because dual credit students often look very different and do need that support. We currently at Boise State are working on what that looks like. So we have about 40% of our students, our fall 2022 cohort, who came in with some dual or concurrent enrollment pieces there. So I think we are out of time. I went right up against. Here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to chat with anybody more in person if you need anything.
Mahalo, Karina, for giving that presentation. It's very informative and a lot to think about. Mahalo, everyone, for joining us today. I just posted the survey link. It would be really great if you could post your thoughts so that we know what to do for the next convening. And again, if you have any additional questions, there's her contact information on the screen. So thank you again, everyone, for a great first day of the convening. We hope to see you again back tomorrow. Mahalo.